Once upon a time, in the peaceful village of Idiato, the marketplace was always lively, with sellers shouting their prices, customers haggling, and the air thick with the scent of fresh fruits, vegetables, and meats. But among all the busy stalls, one stall stood out: Chijioke's butcher stand. He wasn't the tallest or the loudest, but he had something no other butcher had: the best meat, and plenty of it. His cuts were always fresh, thick and tender, and the price unbelievably cheap. Chijioke was a man in his early 40s, with a face that looked older than his years. He was known for his quiet, unassuming nature. No one knew much about him, except that he lived alone in a small house on the outskirts of the village. Though he made a lot of money, no one ever saw him buying anything fancy. His clothes were always worn out, and he ate the simplest of foods, often bread and water. This puzzled the villagers. How could a man who sold so much meat, made so much money, live such a humble, almost poor life? Every day, Chijioke would arrive at the market at the crack of dawn, carrying large bags filled with fresh cuts of meat. By noon, he had sold everything, and the bags were empty. He made his way back to his house without saying much to anyone. The other butchers at the market couldn't help but wonder, where did Chijioke get his meat from? And why didn't he ever share where it came from? The other vendors were becoming increasingly envious of him, but none dared to ask. The mystery only deepened. Nneka had always been one to notice the details that others overlook. She ran a small butcher stall of her own, but no matter how hard she tried, her sales never matched up to Chijioke's. She had heard the whispers from other vendors about how cheap and plentiful his meat was. But something about Chijioke's strange habits gnawed at her. She couldn't stand the mystery anymore. She decided to find out what was really going on. One evening, after the market closed, Nneka made up her mind. She quietly followed Chijioke as he walked home. Keeping a safe distance, her heart raced with each step she took. Was she making a mistake? What if Chijioke caught her following him? But her curiosity pushed her forward. Chijioke's house wasn't far from the market, but it was hidden behind thick trees, far from the busy parts of the village. When he arrived, Nneka stayed outside. Crouching behind the bush, she watched as he unlocked the door and went inside. But she wasn't ready to give up. She slowly crept closer, moving silently like a shadow in the night. When she finally reached the window, Nneka peered inside. At first, she saw nothing but dim light and shadows. Then suddenly, she saw him. Chijioke was standing by a large black pot in the middle of his kitchen. He was chopping something, and from the smell that seeped through the cracks in the window, it didn't smell like regular meat. It smelled rotten. Nneka felt a shiver run down her spine. Nneka's mind raced. What could he be doing with that meat? It didn't smell like anything she had ever encountered in the market. She knew she couldn't just walk away. She had to find out more. Chijioke stepped out of the room for a moment, and that's when Nneka made her move. She crept to the door, quietly opened it, and slipped inside the house. The door creaked and her heart nearly stopped, but no one was around. Nneka tiptoed toward the black pot. It was enormous, and its lid was slightly ajar. She carefully lifted it. What she saw made her stomach launch. Inside the pot were pieces of what looked like human flesh, skin, bone, and meat, chopped into pieces. The realization hit her like a punch to the guts. This wasn't normal meat. This was something far worse. She quickly backed away from the pot, but her legs felt like jelly. She had to get out of there. Nneka ran as fast as she could, not even looking back until she reached her own house. Her heart was still pounding in her chest. She couldn't believe what she had just seen. How could this be happening right in her village? And how could no one else have noticed? Today, Nneka could hardly focus on anything else. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the horrific image of that black pot. She knew she had to tell someone, but who would believe her? She couldn't just accuse Chijioke without proof. That's when she decided to confide in her best friend Adaeze. Nneka found Adaeze at the market and pulled her aside. Adaeze, I have to tell you something. You won't believe it, but I need your help. Nneka whispered, her voice trembling. Adaeze raised an eyebrow, but listened carefully as Nneka told her everything. I followed Chijioke home last night, and I saw something horrible. He's been selling human meat in the markets, and I think he's killing people to get it. Adaeze's face went pale. She didn't know what to think. We need to find out more, Adaeze said. After a long silence, we can't just go to the authorities without proof. We will follow him, see where he's really going. Nneka nodded. They agreed to take turns following Chijioke to gather more evidence. It was risky, but they both knew they couldn't let this go. The truth had to come out. Over the next few days, Nneka and Adaeze took turns following Chijioke. They were always careful, staying far enough away so that he wouldn't notice them. They noticed that every evening, after the market closed, Chijioke would leave his house carrying a large sack. Nneka and Adaeze decided that tonight would be the night they would follow him to see where he went. That evening, Adaeze followed Chijioke as he walked through the village, carrying the heavy sack. She kept a safe distance, heart pounding in her chest, with only the sound of their footsteps breaking the silence. After a while, Chijioke left the village and entered the forest. Adaeze waited for what felt like hours, her eyes fixed on the path ahead. Finally, Chijioke emerged from the woods, dragging the same large sack behind him. Adaeze felt her breath caught in her throat. What could be inside that sack? What was he doing out there? The next day, Nneka and Adaeze couldn't keep quiet anymore. They called the police, showing them the photos they had taken and explaining what they had uncovered. At first, the police didn't believe them. This sounds crazy, one of the officers said, shaking his head. You need more proof. But Nneka and Adaeze were determined. They showed the officers everything they had. The police agreed to investigate further, and the next day, they showed up at Chijioke's house with a search warrant. When the door was broken down, the police found the black pot and other disturbing signs that confirmed their worst fears. They discovered the remains of several people, chopped up and prepared like meat. The village was in shock. How had they missed this? Chijioke was arrested while selling his meat in the markets. Just like any other day, the villagers watched in horror as he was taken away by the police. They had trusted him and now they felt betrayed. Chijioke's confession was chilling. He explained that he had been killing people and selling their flesh to the villagers to make money. He had kept his wealth hidden to avoid suspicion and lived in rags to keep a low profile. His family in another village was depending on him for money, and he did everything he could to keep them comfortable. The village was devastated by the truth. The families of the victims mourned, and the town was forever changed. But Nneka and Adaeze were hailed as heroes. Their courage has saved the village from further horror. The story teaches us that sometimes the people we trust may be hiding dark secrets. It's important to always stay vigilant and question what seems too good to be true. Nneka and Adaeze showed us that courage and determination can make a difference. Even when facing terrifying truths, we should always be willing to speak up and uncover the truth, no matter how hard it may be. Hello fam, please do not forget to follow me or subscribe to my channel. for more interesting and beautiful stories as this.